Have you ever caught yourself saying, I just want to feel better, or I just want to be happy? Maybe you judge this better or happy by wishing things were the way they used to be. Or maybe your happiness is tied to the accomplishment of a future goal. When I get this or finish that, I'll be happy. But what if happiness, peace, and self worth aren't waiting in the past or the future? What if they're right here in how we relate to ourselves in this exact moment? Hello, friend, and welcome to Torches, Yoga, and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. If you're curious about mindfulness, healing, and practical habits that actually work, you're in the right place. Here we focus on simple but powerful practices grounded in ancient wisdom and modern science to care for both your mind and body. So go ahead, hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Today, we are going to explore something we all struggle with from time to time: accepting ourselves. We're going to talk about what it really looks like, how self criticism and self compassion shape our brains, and of course, I'll share ways we can bring true self acceptance into our day to day lives. Let's start with something we've all experienced. You make a mistake, you snap at someone you care about, or maybe you procrastinate on something important. And right away, the voice in your head jumps in. Why did I do that? I'm so stupid. Or I'll never get this right. That voice feels like discipline, but it's actually a form of resistance. Resisting the simple truth that we are just a human. Self acceptance doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means holding space for imperfection without withdrawing love from yourself. It's saying, I don't love what I just did there, but I still love the person who's trying. Now, self acceptance and self esteem often get tangled up, but they're very different. Self esteem says, I'm good when I succeed. Self acceptance says, I'm worthy even when I fall. And research published in the Journal of Rational Emotive and Cognitive Behavior Therapy found that people who practice unconditional self acceptance experience less anxiety and fewer automatic negative thoughts. They don't avoid growth, they just approach it from compassion instead of punishment. So, self acceptance is not letting yourself off the hook, it's taking yourself off the battlefield. When we engage in positive self talk or affirmations, brain scans actually show more activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the part of our brains involved in self processing and emotional regulation. So, we talk about the PFC a lot here, but let's look at the medial PFC. And Misty here can help with that. So, while this whole region up here near the front is our prefrontal cortex, sits there right behind our forehead, that medial prefrontal cortex is a smaller component that's just here in the center of our PFC. And there's also activation in the ventral striatum, which is linked to reward and motivation. The ventral striatum isn't a single structure that I can point to on a model, but it's a collective that works together. So if positive self-talk is lighting up our medial prefrontal cortex and the ventral striatum, that means our brains are treating those kinds of words from ourselves. Our brains treat it like those are valuable and rewarding because they are. Another study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience found that people doing self-affirmations literally lit up those regions. Their brains responded as if they'd received emotional nourishment. On the flip side, harsh self-criticism triggers areas associated with threat and pain, like the amygdala, our security team, and the insula, the part that registers an experience as positive or negative. In this case, interpreting the experience as negative. That means every time we attack ourselves mentally, our body reacts as if it's in danger. This is why chronic self-criticism can lead to us feeling anxious, exhausted, and even physically tense. Now, here's the beautiful twist. When we practice unconditional love, whether towards ourselves or others, a distinct neural network comes online, separate from ordinary emotional reactions. Researchers at the University of Geneva discovered that unconditional love activates areas like the insula, the caudate nucleus, and periaqueductal gray. Those are some areas we haven't talked about before, so let's look a little deeper at those before we move on. So, the caudate nucleus here, if we open up the center here, we can see we've got this little arch here, this little curved piece. Let me get you a little closer. This is the inside, a split of our brain. And this caudate nucleus is this region here, and they work together with an area called the basal ganglia. The caudate nucleus plays a crucial role in our motor control, executive functions like decision making and learning. It's what helps us plan and execute movements. So let's say you're standing at a crossroads, and now you are trying to decide if you should take the path to the left or to the right. You make your decision, and then you initiate that movement in your body, that first step that's going to veer you right or left, that'll lead you down the path you've chosen. Boom! You've used your caudate nucleus. Now for the periaqueductal gray, it's a midbrain region. Again, let's open her up here. And it plays a part in communicating pain signals and is a key player in our instinctive responses like fight or flight or freeze. It has an influence in our heart rate and our blood pressure, and even in our behaviors, including aggression. So our caudate nucleus, we're actually going to be looking down into this area, and it doesn't have its own little structure on this model, but it's going to be deep down way in here. Give you a little closer look here at the internal side of it. It's such a tiny little piece, and it has so many responsibilities. I have learned over the years that my periaqueductal gray is a runner. I'm a flyer. I kind of always knew that, but it really came apparent to me in my 20s. I was actually home alone one day when my home was broken into. It was terrifying, but from that experience, I learned I lose all sense. My PFC hides under a blanket while I just bolt. Looking back, I can't help but laugh at myself a little because instead of making any choices at all, I just took the straight shot through the house to run and hide, which meant not turning into my bedroom where I may have had something to defend myself with, or even my inhaler, because turns out I was going to need that too. But instead, I ran into a spare room we had that maybe had a couple boxes of like some household odds and ends in it that I don't even think MacGyver could have fashioned into a weapon. Luckily, before things had gotten super scary and I had lost all my senses, I had grabbed my phone and had dialed 911 ready to just hit call. Seeing that helped me to be able to see where else in my life I ran, and the cycle was pretty apparent and damning. When I was a kid, I couldn't run, but I would hide behind people-pleasing behavior to appease a narcissist. I would cower in corners like the walls were going to take the blows for me. I would shrink and pretend like I didn't have any feelings. In my teen years, I ran from toxic friends, family, boyfriends, sometimes a little slower on that last one than I needed to, but that's not what we're about. That's not what we're here today for. Now, while there may have been better choices, I can look back and tell myself I handled it the best I could at that time, given the experiences I had had and the lessons I had learned. It was self-preservation, and I don't fault myself for running. Those choices and those experiences have led me to where I am today, and for that, I couldn't be more grateful. Granted, sometimes on this path, it's been hard to understand the bigger picture, but we have to trust in our journey. So the full circle of my little story here is that from the perspective of our brains, acceptance isn't passive, it's healing. It's our nervous system learning that it's safe to be just who we are. When we use negative self-talk and hold on to a perspective based in judgment, we unknowingly create patterns that turn into thieves of our joy. They drain our presence, our curiosity, and our peace. These patterns show up as thoughts and feelings, like holding on to how things should be or how it was, micromanaging for control and leaving no room for grace. Maybe your brain constantly just replays mistakes instead of learning from them, leaning into that this is just who I am mindset, letting the stories define and run the show. It looks like our fear of learning something new or failing, saying you'll be happy when this thing happens, or not moving forward until things are just right. It looks like comparing yourself to others, trying to compete with or fix them, just to avoid your own feelings. If you recognize yourself in any of these, you're not broken, you're human. And good news is, awareness is the first step towards transformation. So now that we have given ourselves some space to step out of the story and see our patterns with clarity, let's give ourselves some grace and shift out of the self-criticism and into self-acceptance. I have 7 mindful living practices that will support you and rewire your relationship with yourself. Practice number 1 is positive self-talk. Start small when you catch yourself in a negative loop. Pause and ask yourself, would I say this to my best friend or somebody I love? If the answer is no, try a kinder frame. Maybe instead of thinking, I can't believe I did that, say to yourself, I made a mistake, but I'm learning. Instead of, I'm such a mess, try, I'm doing my best with what I have today. Each time you direct that inner voice, you are literally training your brain's reward circuits to pair self-compassion with safety. Remember, you are not your thoughts. Practice number 2 is to commit to self-love as a state of being. Self-love isn't about spa days or affirmations that you don't believe yet. It's about a commitment to remain on your own side no matter what. You can hold yourself accountable and stay gentle. It's not either or. Try saying to yourself, I may not love everything I have done, but I still choose to love the person I am. Our words have power. Let the good ones really sink in. Place your hand over your heart and say, may I be kind to myself. May I accept myself as I am, and may I grow in peace. All right, moving on to practice number 3, true self-care. Self-care isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means setting a boundary, saying no, or finally reaching out for help. This kind of self-care isn't escape, it's alignment. Check in with yourself and ask, what would honor my whole self right now? Mind, body, and spirit. Write down 3 things that truly nurture you. Maybe it's getting enough rest, having a quiet meal without your phone, journaling, working on a hobby or craft, or walking outside just to breathe. Those small acts tell your nervous system you're safe and you matter. All right, friend, practice number 4, I call the silver lining rule. Find the benefit in every problem when something upsets you. Pause and listen. Ask, what is this emotion trying to show you? Sometimes anger points to a boundary we've ignored, and sometimes sadness invites you to rest. Our emotions are messengers, not enemies. As psychologist Carl Rogers once said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, only then can I change. Part of loving and accepting our whole selves means understanding that we are part of a bigger picture, that there is more to all this than just me. Which takes us to practice number 5, loving others with boundaries. Loving others doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior. We can love and still protect our peace. That's what I like to call compassionate boundaries. When you say no to what drains you, you're saying yes to your wholeness. And remember, the same brain circuits that activate for unconditional love towards others also activate when you offer love to yourself. We're literally training our brain for deeper connection and trust. Practice number 6, do what feels good, mindfully, of course. I hear you. Coach Lauren, if I only ever did what feels good, I'd never get anything done. Fair, but here's the difference. Feeling good isn't about indulgence. It's about nourishment. Ask yourself, does this feel good now and later? If the answer is yes, it's probably aligned. Maybe it's cooking a meal that you feel good about, calling someone you love just because you thought of them, or taking a slow, mindful walk. Let your nervous system experience contentment, not just stimulation. All right, lastly, friend, practice number 7. Journal your way into clarity. Grab your journal, a notebook, or just a pen and paper, and try this reflection process. I will leave it in the description below so that you can come back to it later. But start with writing down what's bothering you or where you feel stuck. Note any daily habits you have that contribute to that feeling. Write out in every detail you can think of what that better, peaceful, or happier would look like for you. Then write down habits that would move you closer to that vision and act on it. Small, consistent actions built from awareness are the path back to self-acceptance. Now that we've explored what self-acceptance really means, how it lives in the body, how it rewires our brains, and how it changes the way we see ourselves, let's bring it down to something you can live, not just understand. Self-acceptance isn't a single aha moment or a switch that will just be flipped one day. It's more like a slow exhale after holding your breath for too long. It's the space between resistance and relief. Some days it will come easily, others it will feel just out of reach, and both are okay. When we start practicing self-acceptance, we might notice old habits surfacing, like the voice that says you should be doing better or you should have just let it go by now. So instead of striving to be perfectly self-accepting, what if we simply practiced being a little more gentle with ourselves each day? Maybe today that looks like forgiving yourself for not being as productive as you hoped. Maybe it's allowing yourself to rest without guilt. Or maybe it's saying, I did my best today and that's enough. When we live with that awareness, when we choose to meet ourselves with compassion instead of conditions, our nervous system begins to relax. Your inner world becomes a softer place to land, and over time, that safety expands outward. It changes how you love, how you work, and how you connect with others. It's not about becoming someone new. It's remembering that you've been worthy all along. Our words have power even and especially when we are speaking to ourselves, friend. Self-acceptance isn't a one and done accomplishment. It's a daily practice, a daily choice. Be gentle, be honest, and be present with yourself. You deserve love in this moment, not someday, not when you've earned it. Friend, thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and sharing that moment with me. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.